Well, hello there. Catherine Langman here, back with another episode of the Productpreneur Success podcast. And lately, it seems everywhere I'm turning, I'm seeing small business owners struggling with a drop in sales, both online and offline. And, there's probably a multitude of contributing factors to that. Is it interest rates? Is it inflation? Is it because of the end of financial year? I mean, clearly businesses are hurting and the stress and the anxiety is almost tangible. And trust me when I tell you, I totally know how this feels because I've been there, many times myself as well. Now, before we go any further with this episode today, I just want to remind you quickly of two things. Firstly, consumers are still spending money right now. They might be redistributing how they're spending it. Maybe they're buying mincemeat instead of steak or booking a trip to the beach town an hour away versus to the Gold Coast or Bali, or maybe they're buying lipstick instead of a new outfit, but they're still spending money. And secondly, and more importantly, I think, if you focus too much on the negativity of the economy or of whatever's going on in the world, then your stress levels will rise. Your focus will be on what's not working right now, and you will internalize the belief that it's not possible to succeed in business. And I can guarantee you, if you do those things, you will struggle. Whereas if you keep a more positive outlook and, try and remind yourself daily that people do still need to buy stuff and try and, look for the new and creative opportunities to market your business, to, work around the problems and find that, those creative solutions and the working towards the outcomes that you want. So if you can approach things in that way, you will end up not just surviving, but thriving. All right, so I've got that off my chest. Let's move on with the episode. Now, usually when a brand owner comes to me and to my team, they're feeling, a bit stressed and anxious over low or slow or just no sales growth at all. And they're often feeling completely overwhelmed by all of the options available to them and all of the decisions that they need to make. Does that sound familiar? I know it rings a bell for me too. I've been in that boat many times and it does kind of suck. So today, let me give you some insight into the first step that my team and I do before I decide to spend any money on marketing or promotion or really make any decision big decision in my business. So, because at the end of the day, there's absolutely no point spending money promoting your website until you can answer this one question: where is your traffic and sales coming from? So your marketing metrics are critically important to the success of your business. If you don't know these numbers intimately or how you can optimize or improve them, then it's really time to make it your business to learn this stuff. So to start with, what are metrics? As it relates to an e-commerce business. So essentially, metrics are your key performance indicators. They're the numbers that you want to track and measure in your business. Of course, you want to be tracking your profit and loss statements and balance sheet and all of that accounting stuff as well. But in terms of the performance of your business, you need to be tracking and measuring these numbers because they relate to the activities most likely to affect your sales performance. Now, I realize this might sound a little bit stiff and corporate and like a total bore, I know. So let me show you today how we can make it a little bit easy for you, or at least illuminate on the 5 most important metrics that you need to be tracking, as well as how this can help influence your sales growth. So for an e-commerce website, the kind of things that you need to be familiar with would be things like website traffic, the visitors coming to your website and how many visitors are coming, conversion rate, so the percentage of website visitors converting to buyers, average order value. That's fairly self-explanatory. So there's a couple of others we're going to cover as well. Now, you want to think of these metrics a little bit like your car navigation system and dashboard. You would not set out to drive, say, from Sydney to Broome without knowing the route. And you would need to pay attention to things along the way, like speed limits and how much fuel you have in the tank. I know I'm being a little base here. And you'd want to be fully aware of your progress towards your destination and adjust course as necessary, right? You might otherwise end up in Darwin by accident. So we don't want to do that in business. You know, we need to be using these key metrics like your dashboard. They are your lead indicators if you are reviewing them on a regular basis. And they show your progress and whether you are on track to reach your goals. So this is why it's important to look at them regularly. We can't just look at them once a year after the effect. You know, we have no opportunity to actually change or improve things if we're looking at them too late. All right, so what are these 5 critical metrics that you need to know? Let's go over them today. And to begin with, we are going to look at your average order value. And I think this one should be one of the easiest ones for you to find and to understand. And sometimes when I think about average order value, I think about the supermarket trolley on a weekend in our family, which is pretty massively full, thanks to my teenagers. So really this one is going to be probably one of the easiest ones to find. Most website platforms will report on this in your analytics dashboard, Google Analytics as well. Now, as a side note, if you haven't got your GA4, the new Google Analytics set up, you need to get that happening, please. The old one will be retired, I think in July. Anyway, so have a think about how does your average order value impact your business in terms of your revenue growth and in terms of your profitability. Now, it should be fairly obvious that if you can make more money per transaction, then you're going to actually make more money overall off less traffic to your website. At the end of the day, if we are spending money to send traffic to our website, so if we're running advertising or we're putting effort into growing an email list and sending emails to get traffic to our website, we want to make as much money per transaction as possible off that investment and off that effort, right? And at the end of the day, we also need to make sure that we are profitable off paid traffic, because paid traffic should always be part of your traffic system. This is the most scalable traffic source. So I'm not really intending to talk about the different types of traffic. We do have paid traffic, owned traffic, like your own email list database that you own, and earned traffic, such as SEO traffic or word of mouth referrals. But paid traffic is the most scalable source of traffic, right? Because, we have leverage involved in paid traffic. We can spend more money. We don't have to spend more time. So a higher average order value is really going to help you make sure that you can be profitable off that paid traffic. So first task here is to really make sure you know what your average order value is. If you're on Shopify, that's pretty easy. It's going to be on your dashboard, but you also want to be recording this over time. You really want to make sure that you are always seeing the outcome of any efforts to improve your business. So if you make some changes to your marketing or to your pricing or anything in your business with the view to making your average order value go up, you need to eyeball that, so we need to be in the habit of reviewing and recording this on a weekly basis. So then what are the sorts of things that you can do to help increase your average order value? You might already have a few off the top of your head, or things that you've done and tried in the past or seen other brands do. I've spoken on the podcast before about a brand called True Protein that I buy protein powder for my sons from. They do a fantastic job with their e-commerce marketing. It's definitely a brand I recommend that you check out. And so they do a great job with strategies like not just free shipping thresholds, but they'll have a spending threshold that you need to reach to get a free gift with purchase and things like that. So those are a couple of strategies to help you increase your AOV, but then also look at things like bundling and also relevant other products that might, a customer might like. It's kind of like the Amazon strategy, other customers who bought this also loved, that kind of thing. So there's some great apps available that you can actually have those recommended complementary products showing on the same product page as your main product. So say, for instance, and in fact, Babyaiders Australia is an example that does this well, babyaiders.net.au. So the hero product will be there, and then under the add to cart button, there's the accessory products that you can select. So sometimes that, a lot of customers will take those up and they end up spending more per transaction. All right, the second metric that we really need to be familiar with, and again, hopefully this is an obvious one, is your website conversion rate. Now, conversion rate basically means the percentage of your website visitors who actually make a purchase. It should be, fairly easy one to understand. Now, the average conversion rate for e-commerce sits at around 2 to 3%. Now, if your conversion rate is under that, it may be for a couple of reasons. Number one, it may just be that your actual traffic volume is too low. And we will talk about traffic volume in a little minute. So if you're only getting a handful of visitors a day, then your conversion rate is going to be low, because if it takes like 90 days to get to enough visitors to actually mean that 2 to 3% is a single order, then it's probably not going to happen like that. You actually need to get enough traffic through your website to actually convert into orders. But aside from that, if you are getting a reasonable amount of traffic and your conversion rate is low, there are a couple of things that you can do about it. Well, first of all, actually, another reason why it might be low is if your products are really, really expensive. And by really, really expensive, I mean like $1,000 or more, or close to $1,000. And so, it should go without saying that if product costs that much, it's going to have a much higher barrier to entry for customers. The purchase decision to spend that much money in a transaction on an e-commerce website is very different to spending, say, $50. So another client of ours is Pontifex Jewelers, and they sell some beautiful jewelry like some of it's quite accessibly priced, but fashion type stuff. And then they also have beautiful and very expensive diamond engagement rings and all kinds of stuff. And so the chances are you're probably not going to drop $5,000 on a ring on an e-commerce website without spending a fair bit of time familiarizing yourself with that business, getting, having a little bit of a relationship, getting that trust there, overcoming what would be some fairly significant, perceived risks and objections to purchasing that sort of a product online. Namely, is it going to fit? Is it going to turn up safely? Is it going to be delivered without being nicked in the post? I mean, so there's going to be things that impact your conversion rate depending on your price point. If you're kind of a more accessible price point for e-commerce and your conversion rate's really low, then there's a lot of things that would be impacting that. And so you really want to start thinking about the kinds of strategies that might help that. You can look at the website overall. We've got a website assessment tool, in fact, on our website that is free. You can go ahead and go ahead and answer those quiz questions, and that might help you diagnose what's going on. You can head to catherinelangman.com, and it's right on the homepage there. It might be things like, is the website experience, is it just really mismatched with what customers might be expecting when they get to your website? Is the website really slow to load up? Is what you sell and who it's for, is it just not very clear when they get to your website? Are the product pages, they not very impactful? Are they, not really enticing customers to add to cart or check out? Are there any kind of technical problems on the website? There would be lots of different things, and more. So, really trying to diagnose what's going on with the website is super important. Another thing, aside from doing my quiz, that you could actually do that might help you here is to put a heat map app on your website. So you could use a tool like Lucky Orange or Hotjar, I think is another one. A lot of them have a pretty decent free trial period, but a heat map essentially tracks how website visitors are browsing your site. You can actually follow how they're navigating things. Are they scrolling? Are they pausing? Are they clicking? Where are they dropping out? And you can start to get a good idea both on desktop and mobile of how people are actually browsing your website and understand where the glitches might be for them or where the drop-off points are. So if you've got, lots of people seem to be clicking from the homepage to a product page, but then they're all dropping off the product page, then there's a clear issue on the product page. So that can be a super helpful way to really diagnose why you might have a low conversion rate. On the flip side, if you do a little bit of simple mathematical calculations, you will pretty quickly realize that small improvements in your website conversion rate actually equate to pretty big differences to your revenue figures. So this is something that you can't ignore, especially if you really want to scale your business, which requires spending money on paid advertising. You don't want to spend good money on advertising if you're sending it to a website that has a very low conversion rate, because that is going to cost you a bomb. The higher the conversion rate that you have, the more profitable your ads will be, and the much higher return on ad spend that you will get from that sort of effort. All right, moving on to the next metric that we need to be tracking and understanding, and this is your cost per acquisition. So do you know what that one means in terms of e-commerce? Cost per acquisition, this is probably something I don't hear a lot of businesses talking about enough. And this means the cost of your advertising in order to convert a new customer or acquire a new customer. So this one is definitely an important one here, especially as it relates to spending money on advertising. Now, obviously, we want to have the lowest cost per acquisition, or CPA, if I use the acronym, possible. But at the same time, advertising costs have been rising over the years. So how do we help ourselves through that dynamic? Now, obviously, improving your profit margins will help. And for that, you might want to listen to the recent past episode. I think it's 165. That's all about profitable pricing and cash flow management and stuff like that. So having really good profit margins helps. But as does improving the conversion rate, that's definitely going to help as well. As will improving the next metric when I get to it, but also just really understanding that we need to get the right traffic generating strategies in place so that we can maximize our profitability and also mitigate the risks involved that can happen when we only are relying on one source of traffic, particularly if it is a paid source where we don't own our audience or control the algorithms like social media. So on the one hand, I'm advocating that you do need to use paid advertising because it is the most scalable source of traffic, but it's also going to be the most expensive source. But besides all of that, you can't be too scared to actually spend a little bit of money to acquire a customer. I think this is where really understanding the value of the customer, that, obviously we want to have the biggest average order value to begin with, but then also the value of a customer over time. How much do we actually benefit from acquiring that customer in the long term? And so we need to work out what is what's that point where we can be profitable. What's that customer acquisition cost point where we can still be profitable? We can spend up to that, and that's okay. If we can spend more than our competitors and still remain really profitable, then we're in a much better position. We're going to be really winning against that competition. So cost per acquisition is definitely something that you want to track. And here I also want to mention, when it does relate to your paid advertising, your cost per acquisition is always going to be higher off your cold audiences, but you want to be measuring it as an average over all of your ad campaigns. So if you're doing advertising properly, you should have some cold traffic ads, you should have some warm traffic ads. So warm audiences might be people who've already engaged with you on social media. They might be people who've been looking over your website or subscribed to your email list but haven't bought yet. And then you're going to have repeat customers. You're going to have lapsed customers. So the overall average cost per acquisition is really what we want to be looking at, and not just trying to aim for the lowest across the board. You're always going to spend more on the cold traffic ads versus the retargeting ads. That's just how it works. So we need to be looking at the average across the board. to make sure that we are profitable. Now, the next metric, which is kind of something you really want to look at in conjunction with your cost per acquisition, and this is your lifetime value, your customer lifetime value. Because at the end of the day, we know statistically that as a business, you will become more profitable if you get more than one order from as many customers as possible. So, the reason is if you spend money to acquire that customer in the first place, then subsequent orders from that customer are automatically going to be more profitable, right? So we want to have some activities and strategies that we can roll out with our marketing that will help, and our customer service, and having great products and all of these things that give customers a great experience doing business with us. So we really want to encourage them to come back and buy from us multiple times. And then we need to know what that customer lifetime value is so that you can strategically invest in that customer acquisition. And this is going to be the smartest thing that you can do to grow your business. So basically, once you know the customer lifetime value, it means that you can afford to spend a little bit more to acquire a new customer if you know that they are likely to buy from you several times. And so there's 4 factors that do influence a customer's overall value. So there's order frequency. How often are people going to come back and buy from you? There's average order value, like we've spoken about. What is that average order worth? And typically, obviously, this depends a little bit on what you sell, but usually customer order values increase over time. So a customer is likely, on average, to spend a smaller amount with their first purchase from you. And that psychologically makes sense, I think. We all feel like there's a little bit of risk involved in buying from a new business and brand and website. But once they've kind of tested you out and the products turn up and they like them and all of that kind of stuff, it's easy to go back and buy again. And so, yeah, over time, you would normally see the average order value go up for subsequent transactions. Next is the customer lifetime. So how long is a customer actually a customer? Because at some point they're going to leave and stop buying your products, and is that in 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years? For the purposes of your customer lifetime value metric, I would probably suggest looking at a shorter time frame, because at the end of the day, if a customer is worth a huge amount of money in 10 years, we don't want to spend so much to acquire that customer that we have to wait for 9 years to turn a profit on it, right? Because that would be silly. So, maybe to begin with, look at it over a year, for example. And then sales margin. So don't just think about what you're making in terms of revenue, but also in terms of profit. So once you really understand the profitability of your different customers, then you can change how you invest money in traffic platforms, who you speak to on your website, and really optimize your marketing in general. So a formula that you can use is revenue within a period of time divided by the number of buyers in that time. And then beyond that, you also want to consider the speed or velocity from first order to repeat order, because if your customers aren't going to do a repeat purchase until a year from now, then you'll likely want to make a lot more profit off that first order. Whereas, if you know that they're going to be back in 90 days, then it is worth spending a bit more to acquire that customer in the first place, knowing that you're going to make some more money and profit from them in the not too distant future. And this is the approach that's often going to allow you to be more competitive than other brands on the market. Like I was suggesting before, you can, choose to spend a little bit more money on your ads. Particularly because most of them aren't going to know this stuff and aren't willing to invest in the kind of marketing that's going to attract and convert customers. So what are some of the things that you can do to increase your customer lifetime value? Now, some of you may need to look at wholesale on this front if you have a single purchase only type of product. We do have a client in our agency, shout out to Emma from Cozy Go, and that's kind of her situation. But if you have a brand that has a number of products in your range, then you really want to be looking at how you can cross-sell and upsell and entice people back for a repeat purchase. Now, if you've listened to this podcast or read much of my content, or you've worked with me in the past, you're probably going to know I'm going to tell you you've got to be using email marketing to help you with this. Absolutely. This is going to be your best friend in terms of growing a profitable business with customers who come back and buy from you again and again. but you can absolutely be using advertising as well, and just, you know, content generally. All right, so the customer lifetime value, that's the fourth one. The fifth one that we want to talk about, which is probably one that I think a lot of e-commerce brands feel like this is the one that they actually just need if they want to grow, and this is your traffic volume. Now, I know so many brands, they come to me and, you know, they're like, I want to grow my business and I feel like I just need to run some Facebook ads or some Instagram ads or now some TikTok ads. And you know, they think that that's going to be the answer to all of their dreams and goals in their business. Now, it helps. It's part of the equation, right? Hopefully, after discussing these other metrics that we've just gone through, it's pretty clear that it's not the only piece of the puzzle. And but it is also, you know, fairly obvious when it comes to an e-commerce business. Without traffic, nothing else happens. Literally nothing else happens. Traffic is our lifeblood. So, you know, I guess the key is that we want to make sure that we do have a good average order value. We do have a good conversion rate. And, you know, then we need to focus on the traffic volume. Once we've got those pieces of the puzzle, then we're going to start to acquire customers and start to figure out what our customer lifetime value is. And so, you know, traffic volume is really a huge part of the puzzle, but it's not a silver bullet, right? So I know early days in my business, I thought that just getting more traffic to the website was the silver bullet as well. So hands up if you were secretly thought like that as well. But, you know, we just have to really make sure that it's just one piece of the puzzle. And then, you know, you need to be, when you do have that healthy average order value and the conversion rate and the other metrics that we've spoken about, then you are in the perfect position to scale, right? And so this is when you really need to dial up the volume of the traffic. And for this, we need to have a scalable and sustainable marketing system in place. I can't emphasize those two words more: scalable and sustainable. Scalable means we can turn up the money tap and more traffic will come out the other end. And sustainable means that you're not putting yourself at risk by only marketing on one channel, and, you know, also that you can sustain it long term in terms of profitability. And, you know, for example, you can't just throw a ton of money at ads if it's going to eat up 100% of those margins that you're trying to protect, or if you sell all of your stock and you can't get any more for another 3 months, right? That's not going to help you either. And so, you know, because at the end of the day, there's nothing worse than finally getting all of your marketing and advertising converting like a well-oiled machine, only to find out that you've run out of stock and you have nothing to sell for a couple of months. We've definitely seen that happen many, many times in business. So traffic volumes, you know, again, all of these metrics, these are the things that you really want to be measuring on a weekly basis, all of these metrics. But when it comes to your traffic volumes, you actually want to break down the traffic that you're getting from the different channels. So part of the sustainable and scalable marketing system that drives traffic to your website needs to be the different kinds of traffic, so owned, earned, and paid. So your earned traffic, that is, you know, where you work on some SEO, some search engine optimization to really attract the free organic search traffic. Also, you work on doing a fabulous job in terms of, you know, making great products and providing excellent customer service so that customers have an amazing experience and then they tell all their friends about it and you get some amazing referrals. So that's your earned traffic. Owned traffic is your email list. This is going to be your most profitable source of traffic. And, you know, this is kind of like the most valuable asset in your business because you own all of that data and you can use that database. Obviously, you're going to use it for things like email marketing and SMS marketing to drive really, really high value, you know, conversions from existing customers, new customers as well. And so you really want to have a system in place that's always going to grow that email list and grow that database so that you can, you know, because it does have the highest conversion rate pretty much of all your channels of traffic. And so we want to be continuously growing that database, but it's going to start out small. And so we also need to have another way of getting traffic to your website, another scalable way. And this is the paid traffic. And so as I was alluding before, we don't just want to to run ads on one channel, because this is kind of risky. And so this is where you want to look at a few different channels, at least two. So at least Google ads and Facebook and Instagram ads would be kind of like the bare minimum. But these days we're seeing excellent success with TikTok advertising, and Pinterest advertising is doing really, really well. And for some brands, it might be LinkedIn. For some brands, it might be YouTube. Obviously, you don't try and do them all at once. You sort of want to pace yourself with rolling this stuff out. But bottom line is, you know, we really want to be able to scale this up, and you're going to succeed with that by spreading that over more than one channel. And also kind of understand that as users, our browsing behavior is a little bit different on these different channels. And so you're going to get a better end result if you are interacting with a potential customer on the different platforms that they're on for their different purposes. So you might find that, you know, you'll get a first introduction to a potential customer on something like TikTok or Instagram, whereas they might be more likely to be searching and then buying from Google Ads or Pinterest if you're the right sort of brand for that. And so just being in the right place for the right stage with the right kind of content and messaging is going to really help you get there in terms of traffic volumes and increased sales and conversions. So once you know all of these numbers, you can obviously, you know, you're going to grow because of the increased traffic and all of that kind of jazz. But you can also work out how many website visitors you actually need to get your, you know, you need to get to your website in order to achieve your sales goals. So this is a little bit like, you know, say for instance, you are planning to drive from Sydney to Perth. You know, there's going to be a certain number of kilometers to drive there. You're going to need a certain number of tanks full of petrol to get you there, right? So when you know how much traffic you need, then you are in the driving seat, to continue this analogy. You can concentrate your efforts on your best traffic sources, knowing that if you get the right number of eyeballs on your website, you will generate the sales result that you want. Now, I know that for some of you, the next thing that you might be thinking is, well, that's all well and good, Catherine, but how on earth do I know what to do to improve all of those metrics? Now, we did cover a few ideas today, but, you know, the bottom line is this is where you really need to learn and master the right kind of marketing strategies for e-commerce, and understand that it is a system, right? There is no one thing. And so you will find a bunch of free information about, you know, all of those marketing strategies on my podcast and on my blog. So you can go and, you know, search through there at catherinelangman.com. You can also, if you like, you can download my free e-commerce growth pack, which is it's like a bundle of resources. It's for free, but it's going to give you a bunch of tools and trainings to really help you figure out how to grow your business. So you can grab that at catherinelangman.com/e-commerce-growth-pack. I will put the link on the podcast show notes page with this episode. Or you can come and work with me, either in my coaching program or my agency. So this is obviously what I do and love to do every single day. So if you'd like to speed up the process and get the results faster, you can head to catherinelangman.com/work-with-me. And to get started with, it's just a complimentary strategy session. We'll just review your goals. We'll work out the best next steps to get you there, and really just explore whether we are a good fit to work with each other. But for now, that brings us to the end of today's episode. I hope you have enjoyed this one, and I look forward to being back with you on the show again next week. Bye for now.